lado tem festa, tem samba quente. Do outro lado se olha pelo portão. Desse lado brincam de fina gente. Do outro lado briga com o coração. O que é que faz ser tão diferente? É fruto de pura imaginação. Ou será que lá no fundo da gente é mistura de medo e de solidão? Desse lado tem festa, tem samba quente. Do outro lado se olha pelo portão. Desse lado brincam de fina gente. Do outro lado brincam.
The Tuesday, February 25th, 2020 public hearing for the City of Tampa's Barrio Latino Commission. Welcome, everyone. I'm John Thompson, Chair of the Commission. If you are here to present a project, you will have limited time to make your presentation, so we suggest being thorough but concise. When coming to the microphone, you will need to identify yourself and your relationship to the project. The commissioners will not ask any questions during your presentation. Your project should be presented in the following order: site plan, elevations, architectural details, wall sections. Staff presents staff report. We will then ask for public comment. Following your presentation, the commissioners will be asking questions in the same order as the presentations. Please state and spell your name clearly if you are here to speak for or against a project. Your time will be limited to 3 minutes, so take some time now to summarize your comments because that time goes by very quickly. Following public comment, the applicant will have 5 minutes for rebuttal. The public hearing will then be closed. The only comments which will be allowed after the public hearing is closed will be in response to any questions from the commissioners. The commissioners will then discuss the case and make their decision based on the city ordinance, chapter 27 of the city zoning code, the design guidelines of Secretary of Interior Standards, design review comments, and the testimony given at the public hearing. The BLC can only act on items that are within our specific jurisdictional responsibility. Owner agents are independently responsible to obtain any appropriate permits and or approvals. If you haven't already done so, please silence your cell phones. And we'll introduce commissioners starting on my left.
Good morning, I'm Eric Schiller.
Good morning, I'm Lee Ving Nguyen.
Good morning, Jose Chalotz.
And we also have with us today Dennis Fernandez, Ron Vila, Beverly Jusek, and Kate Wells.
And also this morning with the City Attorney's Office is Kamaria Pettis-Mackle. Kamaria just joined us yesterday. Some of the commissioners have met her already. She will be taking over the historic preservation responsibility, so we're excited to have her on board.
Great, welcome.
Thank you.
And now we move to the minutes. Reading the minutes of January 28th, 2020, we need a motion for approval.
Motion to approve.
Seconded.
We have a motion and a second. Do we have any further discussion on the meeting minutes? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, minutes are approved. Announcements.
Good morning, Commissioners. Dennis Fernandez, Architectural Review and Historic Preservation Manager. Just one brief announcement this morning before we get into our agenda. I did want to let you know that the Ybor City Museum Society is holding its annual Buildings Alive Ybor City Architectural Hop on Thursday, March the 5th. This is a great opportunity to showcase some of our historic buildings in the Ybor City area. This year, there's going to be tours of the Centro Studiano, Cuban Club, the Italian Club, Design Styles Architectural Building on Columbus Drive, and the Lion's Eye Institute. So anyone that's interested in attending that does occur between 5:30 and 9:30, and tickets can be obtained at yborcityonline.com or by visiting the Ybor City Museum at 1818 East 9th Avenue. Just a wonderful opportunity to get out and see some of the beautiful architecture in Ybor City. Thank you, and with that, I think we're going to move on to conflicts of interest and disclosure of ex parte communication. I'll have legal address that, please.
Thank you, Mr. Fernandez. So now would be the time if any of the commissioners have a conflict of interest on any of the items that are scheduled for today's consideration to disclose that conflict.
On BLC 2047, that's a project that's running through our office, so I will pass the gavel at that point and recuse.
Okay, and we will get you the proper form to complete so it can be
It's
a part of the
filled out
minutes.
already.
Thank you, I appreciate that. And then also, if any of the commissioners, for the items that are scheduled, have had any ex parte communications, now would be the time to disclose them. If the communications were verbal, please disclose the sum and substance of the communication, who you spoke with, and when. And if they were, if the communications were in writing, if you could provide the clerk with a copy of the email or the correspondence so it becomes part of the record. So seeing none, I'll turn it over to Ron Vila for continuations. Ron? Ron?
Good morning, Commissioners. Ron Vila, I'm staff with Historic Preservation. Moving down our agenda under continuations, we have none reflected, so the 3 cases that are in the cycle we will handle this morning. And at this time, everybody that wishes to testify, please stand up and raise your right hand, including staff, to be sworn in.
Do solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you'll be providing this morning is the truth and nothing but the truth?
So the first case reflected on today's agenda is BLC 20-43. Also, it is a plan amendment, so it has another tag to it, which is TA/CAP 19-18C. This is for the address of 1800 East 8th Avenue. It's also known as Centennial Park. The current zoning is YC4, and in front of you this morning is coming for a recommendation to the future land use from a R50 to a R/01, which is residential open space. Excuse me, recreational open space. To provide additional information on that request, this is the Sanborn map. North is up. Property in question is in this yellow box. The southern portion of the property flanks 8th Avenue. The northern portion is 9th Avenue. To the west, you have 18th Street, and to the east, you have 19th Street. So you see the fabric and the concentration from the early 1900s. This is from 1929. You see the yellow, which indicates frame construction. These are houses. Then the red is a brick construction. Over here you have a store that kind of anchors the corner. And then in the middle of the block is blue, which is CMU, and that represented a fire station. All this fabric is no longer there. This is looking from above, that same block. Once again, you have 8th Avenue to the south, 9th Avenue to the north, and then your streets that run north and south. You have 18th Street that was converted in respect to Angel Oliva Senior Street, and then 19th Street on the east side. Just gonna walk you around the periphery of the building, show you, or the block of what's currently there. You see the trolley tracks. This is 8th Avenue. This is the southern portion of the block in question. Here there's a art studio that the city runs, kind of outdoor space. You see the grand trees that are incorporated into the park. The trees to create that park-like setting, and then you have some period 5 globe lights. There's different artwork associated within the park. This is moving to the southeast corner over here. This is a little outdoor pavilion. Then it does incorporate some restrooms. This is looking at that same facility. This is on the corner of 19th Street. You see the open area that events can be held at, and then the restrooms as you go to the north. This is on 9th Avenue now. This is the northern boundary. This is the completion of the building that we were just looking at. Some horizontal space with the Immigrant Statue centered in that area. And then just to complete the block, this is looking back at that art studio that we started on. This is on 8th Avenue. This is showing the representation of the trolley and how it comes by, and the tourists could enjoy the park. And then there's a stop down here if they want to get down and rest there. And that was looking to the east. This is looking to the west. You see a portion of the park over here. And this is down 8th Avenue to the east. This is showing across 19th Street, that a joint effort through the city of Tampa and FDOT when they were widening the interstate and they were impacting the historic district, that we chose some homes to relocate to create more of a block face. So all 5 of these homes were relocated with the proper setting and rehabilitation, so one could enjoy, a block of what it looked like back in the early 1900s. And just to conclude with the photo presentation, this was another house that was relocated. This was an empty parcel right next to the Ferlita Bakery. This is on 9th Avenue, and this is on the corner of 9th and 19th, and it just kind of completes that block too. It was kind of missing a 2, so this was a good infill at that time. So I believe Danny Collins with the Planning Commission is here, and he's going to address the board at this time.
Thank you, Ron.
Good morning, Commissioners. This is Danny Collins with the Planning Commission. This amendment is part of a process that was initiated by Tampa City Council to recognize existing City of Tampa parks. This is just one park. We're currently working on several parks throughout the city, and this is required to come before you before it proceeds to City Council. This is an aerial of the subject site. You'll see the site's shown in this outline in this purple color. It's Centennial Park. This is Ivor City State Museum, just to the north of the subject site. This is the adopted future land use map. The site is in the residential 50 future land use category. This area just to the south and east and west of the site is UMU 60. And then this red couple blocks to the south is CC 35. The proposed amendment would recognize the site for recreational open space. That's shown in this green color on the adopted future land use map. This is a slide kind of showing the existing or the potential intensity and density that can currently be considered for the site. The site can currently be considered for 71 units or just under 125,000 square feet of non-residential development. The Planning Commission reviewed the request and found the request consistent with the comprehensive plan as it relates to promoting recreational and open space opportunities throughout the city. Based on those considerations, the Planning Commission's found the request consistent with the comprehensive plan. I'm available to answer any questions.
Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners. Ron Vila, staff with Historic Preservation. The charge in front of you this morning is to give a recommendation to City Council. This project is moving forward to City Council on March 26th. They're looking for your guidance. On page 3 of the staff report are your duties and powers that are associated with Chapter 27, Section 95A 2H. With regards to the application for rezoning, changes to land use classifications, or comprehensive plan amendments, to review and recommend reasonable land use changes to the extent necessary to preserve the historic integrity and appearance. That's what's in front of you today. Mr. Collins is here to answer any questions, as I am.
Thank you. We have the opportunity for public comment if there are any folks here to speak to that. Doesn't look like it, so we will move into questions from the commissioners, starting on my left.
I have no questions.
So as the park as we see it now, how long has it existed in that state?
Prior to the residential 50 was the original future land use category. So prior to the adoption of the comprehensive plan.
85. Okay, great. Thank you. Those are the questions I have.
One question. At one point, many years ago, there was the city had leased part of one of the pavilions to a commercial enterprise. I believe it was like a beignet shop, which I thought really added a lot to the character of the park. Would those kinds of uses still be allowed under this reclassification?
The recreational open space allows for public support uses. So if the city determines that that would be a public support use, that's something that would be dealt with through the city.
Okay, thank you.
So there currently are different businesses in there now. I think there's an art shop, pottery shop. That will be, is that planning to remain there? Is that going to be relocated?
At this time, it's this is just a plan amendment, a future land use amendment.
Okay.
So
So
this,
it's okay.
just a little background, this is
Okay.
part of a citywide effort. There's 6 other parks that are going this round, and
Right.
Centennial Park was one of those.
And just for clarification, that's actually run by the city of Tampa.
I wasn't, okay.
Parks and
I wasn't sure.
Recreation. Yeah,
Okay,
that came
thank you.
up earlier.
Thank you.
I do have a question. So in the unlikely event that, let's just say that this amendment passes, it becomes open space. And then, as things progress or degress, we end up with a homeless encampment covering the whole park. Would that not make it more difficult to deal with that if it was zoned as open space?
If I may respond to that, the only issue before the commission is the request to change the future land use designation from residential to recreational open space. This is part of, as Mr. Collins said, this is part of a concerted effort by the city to look at all of the parks that are codified as dedicated parks and ensuring that any type of development that is not consistent with recreational open space be prohibited.
Like
So
camping.
we've actually gone through one round of amendments so that any ability to do residential or commercial uses is removed by the underlying future land use designation. So a lot of the questions that I'm hearing today would be appropriate for the administration, but don't necessarily impact the application that's before you.
Well, you lump all the parks together, and this one is special.
They're all special. And this is to protect the designation and the dedication as a city public park.
But not necessarily protect the park. Protect the designation. designation.
I would submit that there's greater protection by having a recreational open space designation than a residential designation that would allow the park, potentially allow residential development on that space in the future, so.
May I? Put this. So this, I briefly went over this. This is a slide kind of showing the potential impacts of the request. Currently under the residential 50 category, if the city, for some reason, were to, sell the property down the road, it can be considered for development within the residential 50 category. The proposed recreational open space removes that consideration of residential from the subject site, so it is adding a layer of protection to the site.
Right. Question to Ron. In the Sanborn maps and in the historic fabric of the district, has there ever been a park of that scale that has been part of the original fabric? We often talk about moving houses to fill in spots. Are we moving a park that was, or are we trying to somehow go back and retrofit a park that never was into the fabric?
As the Sanborn shows that there was never a park at this location, as the urban environment changes, we hear from the community as there's more residential suitors that are coming to fill those spots to make Ivor a viable part of town. Those outdoor spaces are very important. So the city is looking forward to create the spaces that satisfy the needs of the potential residentials that are coming into the area.
All right, so and this is rhetorical in nature, but what we're tasked to do is to preserve the historical integrity of the district. The park itself was never a piece of the historical fabric. The city is attempting to alter the historic fabric further by changing the zoning and making that particular park a portion of the district where it never was in the past.
Just for clarification, this isn't about changing the zoning, it's about changing the underlying future land use designation.
Okay, so there never was a park of that scale?
Hi, Dennis Fernandez, Architecture Review and Historic Preservation Manager. One park that comes to mind is Cascading Park, which is, today would be situated north of the interstate, but back in the period of historic significance was incorporated into the area. I think there's a reality of the interstate that's somewhat divided Ybor City and does not facilitate the use of Cascading Park in a manner that would be somewhat compatible with the practicalities of managing a historic resource like Ybor City. The need to have events showcase the history and the culture, and that's what Centennial Park was commemorated for on the 100th anniversary of the establishment of Ybor City, to showcase Ybor City and to present a venue that obviously historically didn't exist, but there's other elements in the districts that we have worked within the parameters of preservation to commemorate and recreate. So this is one of the parts of Ybor City that historically may not have existed because it was an urban and industrial factory town with very little open space. But as Ybor has evolved, these types of amenities, I do think, contribute to the historic character of the area.
Thanks, Dennis. That was my question. So any further questions to the applicants? Well, we have the portion of time here for any rebuttal to what you've heard the commissioners ask. If there's any additional information you'd like to submit.
I would just like to sum it up that this is kind of a citywide effort. This is our second batch that would be going to city council. There are several parks that may be coming down the road, and that's about it. So this is kind of a citywide effort.
Okay, thank you. So we'll close the public hearing on this particular case and discuss.
Okay, well, here's why I vote no.
Well, you don't know what the motion is, but
Here's why I'm not in favor of changing the designation. One, it's going fine. It's going pretty good. It shows indications of getting worse, depending on what other people do in parts of city government. We don't know, but we could end up with a tent city there. If it was open ground all the time under this change, I think it'd be much more difficult to deal with that. If it got totally out of control, which happens if you look at the news, they could put a fence around it, they could sell it to a developer, and they could put up all the houses that used to be there. So I'm not in favor of that. And it's going okay, but I don't know what's coming on down the road. So I would leave it alone.
So to start with, so I was interested in how long that park had existed as is, just for that historical context as well.
It was
And
86 or so.
86.
Yeah.
But then as we've seen, because of course we want to preserve the historic fabric of Ybor City, and also we have to take into account the changes that happens over time as well. And so in my view, what was I going to say? This park has become part of the urban fabric of Ybor. You see, a farmer's market happens there. There's small businesses that can either rent space or occupy it during certain times as well. And people go there to relax, just to maybe get a little bit of nature from the mixed use and commercial environment of Ybor. And as we look to infill more, and as we look towards the future, where we might look to try to even make things more dense and reduce parking, get rid of cars more, make it more walkable, that kind of thing. I find a park like this to be a very important aspect of the future of Ybor, while it preserves that historical context of it being an urban mixed use, a walkable type of environment as well. And as for addressing for something like the tent city, I understand those concerns, but I think those concerns are just a symptom of larger, political, economic, social inequalities and whatever else that you have. It's a symptom rather than just a root cause of something like a park being open for public use.
Just general, I can support the change, because these kind of large public civic spaces are important in the historic district as it develops and transitions into more of a residential community. Plus, it's important to be able to have public civic spaces that don't really impact the traffic patterns during large events, and I think there's very few places in Ybor City that kind of can accommodate that. So I'm supportive of it.
It's a challenge to put on the hat that requires you to preserve the historical integrity of the district when you know that the thing that you're trying to change to wasn't part of the history. With that said, I'm all in favor of parks and their incorporation and putting them into neighborhoods. So it's a challenge to have to wear one hat that says that you have to preserve the historic integrity of something, and knowing that it's not historical, and then the other hat is that it's a benefit to the community and you enjoy going there. So with that, let's craft some motion to see how we can move this forward.
This would be a recommendation to
City Council.
Do you want to move forward, or?
Sure, I can do that. Okay, so move to recommend City Council to approve BLC 20-43 TA/CPA 19-18C for the property located at 1800 East 8th Avenue for the proposed rezoning from R50 to R-OS with the, I'm not sure we have any conditions that we want to add at the moment.
We can't place conditions.
Yeah. For the reasons that, let's see, for reasonable land use changes, we find that it preserves the historical integrity and appearance of Ybor City, and in accordance with the applicable design standards that we oversee.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second, and just for clarification, add, according to the staff findings, that the change would be then consistent with section 27-95A2H of the City of Tampa Code of Ordinances.
We have a motion with a second with a clarification. Do you accept the clarification?
I accept.
Okay.
And if I may, Mr. Chairman, in the motion, you indicated that this was for a rezoning. This is actually for a land use change.
Oh, land use change, sorry.
Thank you.
Okay, motion, second, clarifications and corrections on board. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Aye. 3-2.
Just for the record, if I could have the ayes raise your hand, please,
The ayes?
guys.
All in favor?
So the motion passed 3-2.
Yes.
Good morning, Commissioners. Ron Vila, staff with Historic Preservation. Moving to the next agenda item, which is BLC 20-46. This is for the address of 1410 North 21st Street. The primary structure was constructed in 1905. It is a contributing structure. It's one of our cigar factories. The certificate of appropriateness in front of you this morning is for exterior renovations with some site improvements. Wanted to start with a period photo. This was undated through our archives. Just wanted to point out a couple of items here. On the front, which this would have been 21st Street, you have a perimeter fence. You have some pilasters and some horizontal elements. The formal walkway was open. You see the shutters that are incorporated on the first floor. The pediment here currently is removed, and there will be some discussion of reconstructing that. This is a tight shot of the Sanborn. As the park reflected the density of the living in Ybor City, so does this. This is the cigar factory here. Initially, the cigar factory was built with this footprint, and then early on, this was in 1905, and early on, I believe before 1915, this annex was incorporated, and there's a picture here just showing this portion of the cigar factory. And then this is 21st Street, and this is 3rd Avenue. Oh, excuse me. Yeah, 3rd Avenue. So you see the density of homes that supported the cigar factories and how the dwelling units were incorporated into the quality of life in Ybor City. This is today from above. 4th Avenue to the north, 21st Street to the east, 20th to the rear, which is the west, and then you have 3rd Avenue on the southern portion. You see the massing of the cigar factory, and then in the early 2000s, this appendage here was approved by this board, and I'll provide you with some photos. The circulation today is that they've incorporated the rear for parking, and if you come to the site, you come in this main throat here, you park, and then you come in through the back. This is moving to the more historic portion. This is the corner of 4th Avenue and 21st Street. This was the first building from 1905, earlier building, and then building from 2000, early 2000. You see how the pediment has been removed or altered in some way, and there are no shutters that incorporate the first floor. This is just a complete shot of that northern facade. As you continue down the northern facade, the building terminates here, and then as you go west on 4th Avenue, you see the fencing here that's existing. That will be part of this request. They're going to change the fencing. As you come around 20th Street and then get back on 3rd Avenue, you see the fencing, how it's incorporated here. You see the vegetation here. Landscaping will be part of the request in front of you this morning as well. Then you get to the vehicular throat, which is here. This is entering your complex. Historic building on the right, parking on the left. This is just looking down one of the parking aisles. See the lighting and the landscaping. As you come in that throat and you look back towards the historic buildings and then the new construction, this area will be altered here with some ADA accessibility. This canopy here was done about 5 years ago, along with this serenity wall. This is a place of comfort that I think the owner is going to speak about, or the agent's going to speak about. But this came about just in the last 5 to 10 years with this awning here and these steps. Just looking to the left, see the back portion of the historic building. This is looking down 21st to the south. You see that there is a little retaining wall there. Just a closer shot of the retaining wall and the existing fencing and landscaping. This is getting to that ceremonial entrance off of 21st Street. 1905 building, 1915 building is what we're going to call it. You see some of the condition of the wall. This is looking in the ceremonial entrance between the two period buildings. There's a gate there now. And then just to conclude with the historic photo again. That completes the photo presentation. They'll be here if you need them for reference.
Thanks, Ron.
Good morning. Jackson Smeagol with Construction Services. We're the general contractor on the project. Adding on to what Ron had discussed earlier, what we're proposing to do here is a complete site renovation of what's currently there. Touching base with what we're going to be doing here is just kind of showing some poster boards of what was here before, what's currently here, and then going into what we're proposing as well. So obviously what Ron discussed earlier, we've got what was back in the 1910, 1915 era. Obviously currently there was the pediment, the shutters, there was some pilasters with the pipe railing. Moving a little bit farther down the road, and they added the other building. Same exact conditions as what they had before. Kind of jumping into what Ron had discussed as far as what is there now. What is currently there now, this was actually back a couple of years back when 21st was being renovated. And basically, as you see, shutters not here. The retaining wall that is currently there, which goes around the property, which is really just a CMU wall that's currently deteriorating.
Can we take a time out there for a second?
First.
We'd like to see if we can get the images on the screen. We're having commissioners
There
having a
we
hard
go.
time. You can stay where you're at. We
Okay.
just,
Yeah,
we need
we
the
just couldn't see what you were talking
You're
about.
okay, thank
we
you.
need the camera assist. Thanks.
No problem. So this is looking from 21st Street at the current building now. Again, as you see, pediment removed, shutters removed. This exit here currently is just an emergency exit, so it's not used currently. And this staircase is actually deteriorating right now. And again, retaining wall that moves around the property. And then going to the main entrance, it is now currently the main entrance, which is by the west side of the building. Back in 2016, we actually constructed this new entrance here, which currently what was there prior to that was some old brick walls, some stairs that were not to code. So Lions at that time had contracted us to come in and kind of give it more of an updated feel, gives their employees an area to have an area of refuge, same with when they have clients and they have donors come in, it kind of gives them a nice area to come into. So we had constructed this entrance, which was approved by the board at that time. Taking another look at what you kind of see currently. So you've got some seating areas, the railing, concrete steps, the walls, and they've added some different quotes from different people onto the walls here. And then we've also added, there's a water feature up front here on the south side of the entrance. Sorry for the up and down photos. So just another shot looking as we get closer to the front door here, when you've got some more steps, again, more seating areas, more quotes. And then the new awning that was added at that time. Currently, this is their main entrance right now for both employees, for the public to come into the building. And this awning was added as well at that time, and again, more seating areas. And this is kind of looking back towards that water feature here. Again, more seating. Same look, just a little bit more of an in-depth photo of exactly what was here, what is here currently. Moving our way towards the other entrance, which currently is where a lot of their donor services come in. So right now, this is a stair entrance that comes into the building on top of what they already have currently at the front. There's also, as we work our way around this corner, I'll show you the current ADA entrance. So this is looking towards the newest addition back in the early 2000s. This transformer was relocated here back during the 2016 project. This ramp entrance right here currently is actually the only ADA access into the facility. That's where they have any of their deliveries. Anybody that's in wheelchairs, they come down into the basement. There's an elevator there, which they come up to the main lobby. And that's going to be addressed on the new renderings I will show you. Just another shot of that same area. So moving into what we are proposing. Currently, what we're proposing, there's a couple different looks on the 21st side of new landscaping. There's discussions that we've gone into with the owners group about this section here off 21st, about creating an area that they can put up some historical plaques that kind of give a better idea for what was here prior, and then show any kind of donor services, people that want to donate to Lion's Eye, they can have plaques here on this side of the road. The entrance off 21st, which as Ron was alluding to earlier, which was the original main entrance, we are going to go back in and add Spanish tiles up the front here, replace the gate. We can't move this gate out towards 21st because for security reasons, they can't have anybody be able to climb over the wall and get into this main door here. As well, the pilasters, the brick retaining wall will be added, but the historically accurate pipe railing, which I will show you some samples of in a second. And this is kind of an in-depth look into that entrance. So you'll have some tables and chairs, some nice landscape potted plants. Again, with the Spanish tiles moving their way down. Currently, you just got some cracked up concrete, which will be removed and then repoured, and then the tiles will be added here. Just an overhead shot of that area as well, as you can see how it'll be used. And then a view from the door looking out towards 21st. Again, same thing as we discussed already. And then as we work our way towards the main parking lot area, there are 2 different entrances to the building currently. This is on the 4th Avenue side, where it's currently that gate is not usable. It hasn't been usable for quite a while. So part of the project will be to replace both the gate on the north and south entrance. There also, as you see, again, this brick retaining wall that will go around the entire property. Now, as we work our way around the property, which I'll show you on a plan, this top piece will change from pipe rail to picket fencing for security purposes, because again, currently the use of the building is for the employees to park in this area, and because they're a 24/7 facility, it's a high-use facility, so security-wise, they can't have anybody from an employee standpoint walking out in the parking lot and somebody being able to climb over a pipe rail or a temporary fence of any kind. So these gates will be closed at night. During the day from 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. The south entrance gate is always open for deliveries for the public to come through. But this fencing will be added on the wall going around the west side of the property. And another shot looking at what we're proposing here. So as part of the new landscaping that will be going in around the parking lot, there will also be, we'll be adding a brick paver drive straight down from gate to gate. There will also be, Lion's Eye is wanting to add an entrance to this side here for the new eye bank clinic. So we'll be adding a new canopy, very similar to the canopy that's on the current entrance now, as well as brick pilaster columns. We will not be fencing this off because they would like to use this for when they have kids come in for tours. Kids can come up and they can have lunches, things like that in this area. Currently showing what's here now and moving into what we're also proposing as a new ADA access point will be a switchback ramp that'll go right in here. So kind of get your bearings here is this is 21st Street and this is the south section and this is looking right at that main entrance. So currently these set of stairs stop right here and there's just an empty space here. So we're proposing to add a switchback ramp to come from the parking lot up to this main door here, which will allow them not to have to use this basement entrance anymore for ADA access. As well as you can see the new landscaping that'll be going around. So you'll have new plants, shrubbery, sod going around the entire property. And then here's that brick paver drive, as well as the new gates on the south and north, the Spanish tiles at the entrance here. And again, so this wall currently, what you'll see is as this wall moves its way around, this will all be the pilasters with the brick retaining wall that will have the picket fencing on top. Once you get to this section right here, moving all the way around this way, and then stopping right here will be the pipe railing, and there'll be another security fence right here and here that'll separate people from, if someone does climb over this section, they cannot get access to this side of the building. And then some shots of what some of the finishes will look like. And Jasmine, would you mind grabbing the So the brick will be the brick here, which I'll show you. Some different ideas of Spanish tiles that we're still going back and forth with the owners on. I don't have any samples of the Spanish tiles today. I will show you the brick and the railings here. This is what the radius on the corners will look like. So you'll have these pilasters with these radius corners, again with the pipe railing. This is what the picket fencing will look like. This will both be a gate and also what goes on top of the wall. These are the current light fixtures that are around the property. The 2 lights that are in the parking lot will be replaced more to a modern fixture because of security. These kind of fixtures don't get up that high enough for them to get the coverage that we need. And then just some rendering shots of the new landscaping that'll be going in. So you've got different shrubbery, different sod, different trees. and then some of the samples to kind of be able to show a better idea of what it will look like. So these will be your columns. So these will be the columns that come straight up and down, and you'll have the pickets that come across at each individual section. So this is the aluminum that you'll see all the way across on top of the wall. And these will be the tube railing. So you'll see a 1.5 inch going across, and you'll see a 2 inch vertical that goes up. And these will be the cross members that go in between as they tie together. And then at the top of all the pickets, you'll have this piece at the top here that kind of represents more of that standard picket type railing going all the way across on top of the fence. As far as the brick goes, this is the mix of brick that will be used for not only the wall, but anywhere else that we've got the wall, the columns. So this will be a standard brick that gets used across the entire property. Outside of that, if any questions?
Not currently. We'll go to staff report.
Good morning, Commissioners. Ron Vila, staff with Historic Preservation. Staff find that this application is consistent with the Ybor City Design Guidelines from the plans that we reviewed on December 23rd, 2019. Since that time, it's been an ongoing process. We've been working with the owners and the agents, and we have a list of conditions that are attached to your staff report on page 4 and 5. Through his presentation, he adhered and discussed most of these items, but I'd like to see if additional discussion can take place on a couple of these items. The knee wall and the fencing around has a great impact to the community and to this building. You saw in the historic photo that there was fencing in the front, and they're being as sensitive as possible to recreate that perimeter buffering, and then as they go around to the parking lot, they're introducing a new style. So the finish to the knee wall, and he showed the brick, but the cap also on that knee wall, and how it incorporates into the ironwork as it sets into it. Through our discussions internally, we talked about the recreation of the parapet in the front. Currently, staff is working with the John Germany Library to get a high resolution of that area to see exactly what it is. If you zoom in on it, it's not a brick material. It looks like it's a smooth material. So we want to work with him, if this is approved, to continue that discussion to see if we could pull on exactly what that material was. And I believe that photo documentation will point us in the right direction. Going to the materials, he had talked a little bit about matching the awning that's already there, that was approved in 6 years ago. So just a little more information on the entrance off the parking lot. On that, they are going to incorporate a couple of doors, if you could touch upon the doors. The Barrio does control color palette. I don't believe there's any mention of colors here, but if you could touch upon the color palette. The shutters themselves, he has a lot of documentation to show about the internal workings of the shutters and how they're going to be cladded. It should be expressed through the public hearing today. And I know he brought his landscape architect and their team, and if you have any questions with the landscaping, I'll be here to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Ron. We have the opportunity now for public comment. If there's anybody here to speak for or against the project from the public, now's the time. Seeing nobody stepping up, we will proceed to commissioners' questions, starting on my left.
I have no questions, thank you.
Could you go over the shutter details, as Ron was mentioning first?
So, as Ron talked about earlier on the historical photos, as you saw previously, there were shutters across the first level of this building. And currently, all those shutters are now gone, except the brackets still remain on every single opening across the first two historical buildings. The new building that was built in the early 2000s does not have any current brackets or any shutters, nor will we be adding to those buildings. The only building we'll be adding the shutters to will be the historical buildings, and as you see, we'll be adding back the same detail of shutter going across, and they will be operable. I do have, it's going to be a little hard to see, the material that will be used, which will actually be more of an aluminum material versus steel, because steel is very heavy. And for someone to be able to operate them, steel doors will be a little tough for somebody to continue to push open and close. So it'll actually be a matte black painted material. It'll be an aluminum. It'll actually be powder coated, so it will last longer than a painted steel. And this will be put on the first level across the entire both buildings. So actually, here's a better detail, kind of showing what they'll look like, which again, going back to what was here previously, with the reusing the brackets that are there on all the openings currently.
Great, thank you. And then, so the new canopy will match the canopy that was built 6 years ago. Could you just go in a little bit about the detail materiality of the actual roof on that?
It was as far as the use of the canopy or the material?
Just the materials.
It's a prefab canopy, so it's a metal canopy. To do a structural canopy, there was no need because for the use of it, there's nothing being tied into the building for it. The current canopy that's at that top entrance there is not actually structured to the building, it's just flashed. So we haven't done any protrusions to the existing brick. So that new canopy that goes on the west side there will be the same exact build. You'll build to the building, but then we'll be flashing in next to it, and then we'll be building those brick columns around all the columns that go around the parking lot.
Great. And then for the brick knee wall, how is that getting capped? I see there's looks like maybe some sort of precast cap in the renderings, but is that?
Yes, it'll be a precast concrete cap that goes on top of the wall, and you'll have precast caps that go on each pilaster.
And then for the fencing system you were showing us, I'm guessing everything will be welded?
Yes.
For the picket fence, right?
Yes.
Okay. And then, I'm not an expert in landscaping, but I'm assuming all the landscape picks and all that stuff are native to the area and that kind of thing as well,
Yes,
correct?
and we were highly sensitive to maintenance because for Lion's Eye, they're a nonprofit company, so to spend a lot of money every single month to keep up with the different shrubbery and sod and everything else that we could put in, we had to be sensitive to both the historic, the use, the area that we're in, and also their maintenance side of it. So we have complied to both historic and as well as the current City of Tampa landscape codes.
Great, thank you. Answers my questions.
First of all, thank you and the owners for taking the time and the effort and the care and the consideration to making improvements around the edge of the property in particular that bring this back more in context with the historic fabric. I really appreciate that. I have questions about 3 areas. Part of it was answered for the back canopy. I'm just wondering, it's a little bit hard to tell in this rendering and also in plan, but does it inset from the historic part of the building? Traditionally, when a new component, a new architectural component is added to a historic structure, we always like to see it sort of inset so that it's clear what is new and what is not. And it looks like it comes in a little bit on the corner on the south side, but not so much on the north side. And would that be possible?
We could inset it in. Right now, currently, rendering-wise, we're just trying to go corner to corner of the building to get better coverage, so they have more area for seating and for when they have events that come in. But currently, what was here prior into the 1910s and 20s, which you can't, well, actually you can't see. There was a water tower. It was actually right in this section, which currently now it's just a retaining wall that's there that houses some AC units that'll be relocated. But yes, we can currently modify this section however much we need to better separate it.
Okay, we can leave that for discussion if other commissioners feel strongly about that or not. Okay. Also, Do you have a section through the fence, the pipe rail fencing that you're, because you showed us a extruded square tube, and I wasn't quite clear where that one was being used. You mentioned it was laying.
So that square tube there was for sections, because every 10 feet, we have to have a column in the fencing. So that tube is really just to separate the fencing as we're moving along the wall.
So it's a vertical?
Yes, it's a vertical piece that
Okay,
goes
that's
along
what
the
I
wall.
wasn't clear
Yeah,
about.
basically what you'll see is this picket coming all the way across each section, and then this is the pipe rail section, and this is kind of a look straight down the middle of one of those pilasters. So you'll see a poured footer with a stem wall, and then the brick is directly attached. And then you can see here how you've got these, they're calling poured in place, but we're actually gonna do a precast cap on top, as well as you'll have that along the top of the walls, go all the way around.
So the vertical is a square extrusion, and then the horizontals are a round extrusion.
So the square is only for the picket
Oh,
fencing.
I'm sorry, okay.
Yeah, you're okay.
That's where I was getting
section here
confused.
is
I see.
basically just a 2.5 inch, or actually a 2-inch pipe
Okay.
that's a circular one that goes vertical,
Okay.
and then a smaller one that
All
comes
right.
horizontal.
Thank you for clarifying that. That seems more historically correct.
No problem.
All right, then the third area that I just have questions about are the use of the, it seems like there's a little bit of an inconsistency with the renderings. You mentioned that in between the two historic buildings, you're developing a courtyard area. There is if you could just bring up that rendering again, there appears to be a curved section off of the curb. Oh, well, see, you're keeping an existing fence, right?
We're gonna replace it,
Yeah.
but it'll be the same look of what's there, just an aluminum picket type fencing with gate.
But we saw another rendering where there's a radius
For
on the.
radius. Yeah, that was an idea that we had originally, but the problem we had with that was security.
Okay.
As we started going into it, we started thinking, well, if someone's walking down this street and they climb over this section, it's simple for them to climb over that next section and walk right to that door. So we decided to actually change it and go to this section here and just keep the gate. We'll replace the gate in the same section, and then run the Spanish tiles and then stop these corners right here and here.
It might be more for our comment section, but I feel like without the other rendering that you showed where you make a smaller entrance, as sort of a more historically scaled gesture at this point, there might be a different way to pave all the way to the street that kind of recreates what would have been there historically and not so decorative in terms of a condition that's not being used as a main entrance. But I guess we can leave that up for discussion afterwards. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
One question that I have is on this particular picture right here, is this also a main entrance? Will people be using, so there's no entrance? And then on the other side, on another picture that you showed us, you had some seating, and this is the area where that seating's going to be, but this gate, it's not gonna be a usable gate? Is that what you're
The
saying?
gate will be locked.
Okay.
This is really for their employees to step out, to have a break so they can, have a cup of coffee or something.
Got it.
But this is not for
Public.
public or for clients to come through.
Because everything, all your entrance, you're setting up to happen around in the back.
Mhm,
Okay,
correct.
okay, my other questions were answered. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, thank you for a great presentation thus far.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. A couple questions for you. On this slide, the Spanish tile, we've seen a couple different iterations of it, a couple different types of patterns. Do we have a historical reference that you're basing it off of, or is this something that is just, you know?
We're going with the Spanish tile because of the owners of Lionside. They'd like to see a little bit more color there because currently it's concrete, and historically, you go back to those photos, it's just a concrete entrance.
Right.
So we're just trying to bring a little bit more color into this area, but we haven't made that final selection of the tile.
Okay,
To answer your
I
question.
think that, because you show a couple different variations of it.
Correct. Yeah.
And I think that would be something that we can work with staff on. The tops of these brick piers, you've indicated that they are precast, but here they look like trash receptacles.
That's simply just down to rendering every little detail down to the
Understood.
T. But yeah, these will have precast caps on top to match these caps that go along here.
Like a visible cap?
Yes.
Because it wasn't expressed in the details that you just showed.
Yeah, the details. There they go.
I think it was depicted as a brick top, but labeled as a concrete cap.
Get it in a second. This section right here.
Yeah, I
That's-
got that part, that's fine.
Yeah.
But the top of the pier.
The top of the pier, and flip it, if you can flip it over, it's the next drawing over, and then the top there,
Yeah,
that
so
detail.
they're calling that a concrete coping
Yeah,
up
see,
top here.
it's rendered as brick and called out as concrete.
Yeah, it'll be
Um,
concrete.
Okay, so that top portion that cap is gonna be a concrete cap,
Correct.
not a brick cap.
Correct.
Okay. See, that, when it gets on the public record like that, Ron can go back to it and say, you said it was gonna be concrete. So that's a discrepancy in the drawing, and that's something that's not being rendered, as you mentioned, completely the way you intend it.
Yes.
So I wanted to get that clarified for the record there. Okay, so concrete cap, that last brick top is concrete, okay. And then, okay, going back to, if you'll put the rendering of the new ramp, both the kind of the bird's eye as well as the plan view, I want to ask how much of what is there is being removed to install this new ramp?
So, you see this set of stairs right here? So these set of stairs will be cut in half, and this switchback will go right in this section here. So if you can picture, so currently right now, this set of stairs that you see right here is half a version of that. So these stairs actually continue out to this section here. So it squares off here to here, and then there's a wall right here at the top, and there's nothing here currently besides a step-up transformer to the new transformer that got relocated. So when these get cut out, you'll have a new wall that goes right in here, which will be, you see this current wall that's right here, this will be extended out to create that separation. And then you'll have this switchback that'll come up and down. So you'll be coming up, down, and back up.
And can you put the bird's eye kind of angle back up?
The bird's eye, I think, which one was the bird's eye? Are you talking about the one that Ron showed or something I showed?
You have a rendering of it, I think, from we were just discussing it regarding the extent of the new canopy and its relationship to the corner.
Oh, this one?
Yes, sir. So, to cut to the chase on my question, how much of that is existing? Because what I see there is an opportunity, if some of that stuff isn't new, we have a datum line of that first floor in the basement that's expressed in the brick that you tie into, and that little portion of the ramp that comes up and has the concrete piece there at the front door, in this scheme kind of, is fighting a little bit against the historic fabric of the building. If some of that stuff isn't there, we could potentially not put it there and do something differently to where the concrete just comes up to that first brick course that's articulated between the floors, and then you stop it there. But I get the sense that some pieces and parts of that are still going to remain and go up and beyond that.
So basically, when we redid this entrance, we back up to the currently what's here, when we added this concrete entrance here, this section over to the right, it was just dead space because currently they had a transformer that had to be relocated. Right. So we basically left a section of this open, and this wall, which goes about 15 feet up, is right at the top, and then you've got your pad underneath that new canopy. So the idea was there was a couple options for trying to figure out how do we better get an ADA access added to this building, because this basement ramp that goes down, to try to bring that to code would be a nightmare of problems and cost. So then there was talks about adding an ADA lift, which aesthetically doesn't look great. Also, the owner hates that idea. So the third option was, okay, how do we better incorporate what we currently have and add some sort of a ramp here? Well, with slope, we have to do a switchback.
Right.
It'd be too long
I don't
to-
disagree with your placement. And I guess the question is only involved in how high, if you go back to the other one. That particular one, as you come up the top of the ramp onto the landing, there's that wall that turns left.
Yeah, this is currently here.
That exists.
That exists right here. All we're doing is cutting into that wall that's there now, and then that way it has a way to come down back and forth.
Okay, so the only new portion there is going to be the concrete wall that is at the switchback.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, we're not tying anything to the building except for some railing that goes along, which we may actually end up just doing post-mounted instead of tying into the building. But outside of that, all we're simply doing is adding these two poured-in-place walls here and here, making a cut into the stairs, extending this wall down, and cutting an opening at the top.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
Is there a window at that, if you could put up the I'm not sure if it's a window we're looking at, a historic window.
Down here?
Yeah.
No,
that's just.
That's just piping.
Okay.
no, that's just piping that we left in place.
Okay. And then if you'll put the other image back up. You said that we talked a little bit we'll say that the existing wall there, the concrete wall and the concrete switchback, that's something we can talk about later if we want to look at that. It's an existing condition. So the shutters you're adding to the first floor of the existing building, which is why we see them on those three windows there. Is that correct?
Correct. So
Okay.
this rendering is just to this side, but these
Right.
shutters will go all the way around
Right.
on the first level.
Yeah, and the intent is to keep the canopy that's there.
Correct.
Right. And then so that column that is there will conflict with the operability of the shutters, and it'll basically.
We've actually looked at this, that the shutter will actually have enough room to get around this column on both sides.
Oh, cool. Okay, that answers that question. And then can you put up that last rendering that has the rounded entry that we were discussing earlier?
Can I just ask real quick while you still have this rendering up there? So for the new canopy, is that being directly connected to the existing building?
No.
No, so there will be columns against the walls there?
No, these will be the only columns we'll add, and this canopy will be freestanding, and
Okay.
then this will be flashed to the building. So
Okay.
there may actually be another column in here and here, but there's not gonna be any attachment to the building. Exactly how this one was done, there was no direct attachment to the building,
Okay.
it was just flashed.
So then,
I guess you can look at either one of these. This one?
Yes, sir. Yeah, I think in getting to the past comment, I think that, you do have the opportunity there to replace the secured fence, establish the break area, do a pattern as you're showing there if it's historically appropriate, and then scale it down. That curved entry there is much more historically appropriate and interesting than just the full volume of that thing coming out, especially if it's not a formal invitation to that door. If you're trying to say, hey, this is a place that you're not really invited to go, having a bigger entry versus a smaller entry seems counterintuitive. And that one seems more appropriate, but that's.
Well, and it's, if I could jump in, it seems like you could still do this, and then put the fence that you need for security purposes where you have it, where you're
Right.
showing it, that would still be another area of transition.
And we had that discussion with the owners. I guess to them, it was just more of a cost standpoint of why spend money to put a fence here and a fence here when when really all we need is this. But obviously, depending on how this all goes, if this is something that needs to be done, obviously I'm up for building however it needs to be done. But that was the conversation we had, was just basically we're creating two gates at the same spot.
Here's what you tell them. You say it's a wash because we're not doing so much tile up front.
Yeah, in that scenario, the decorative tile would end at the.
Yeah. Or
Right.
yeah,
Other
you
fence area
can
that
figure
you
out how to
speak
do it.
of,
I just
right.
from a scale and historic sensibilities, what you're showing at that front, at that gate is more appropriate than what we've seen in the other rendering.
Yeah. And are these the doors that Ron was concerned about?
Right, I have that note too,
Oh, okay.
to
The-
inquire about.
Is it the,
I don't know. Let's ask Ron.
is it these doors that you had a note about in the courtyard?
Which one? Oh, we're not adding any doors though. Yeah, no, there's no added doors. The doors are staying, so the door that's up here will stay. The door that's up here will stay. The door down at the basement, we're not adding or changing any of the doors.
Okay,
Okay. Are you painting
we're
them?
just clarifying.
You're there, Ron. He's not painting the doors. Okay.
The other I'm sorry,
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, the other item that I have noted is the color palette that Ron asked us to bring up. I don't know that I saw anything.
Again, I mean, that's why I brought the brick sample, so you could see the brick color. Beyond that, concrete, the railing, the fencing, the pipe railing will all be black. The canopy, the shutters, that's really,
Yeah.
there's no painting
Okay.
anywhere, so.
All right.
Yeah. Thank you. Okay. You've answered a lot of questions very quickly and
Yes,
effectively.
you have.
Sorry.
Sorry.
Sorry, one more question, because you could,
You get a 11th free one.
if you could put up your site plan, please?
The rendering or?
The rendering of the site plan, because you mentioned that you were considering some kind of curb cut area where you
Oh,
could
yeah.
develop historic
yeah,
references, but it didn't
flags
show up
and-
in the
yes.
site plan.
Yeah, so it was an idea that we had talked about. So kind of some backstory to this. So because Lions is a nonprofit, every dollar that's spent on this project is through grants, through the county, through the state. And because of that, there's been lots of adding and removing of pieces based on grant money that we've been obtaining to do this project. So this was part of a grant that I know they're currently going after that we may or may not add to the project down the road to create a nice area for, like I said earlier, for plaques with the historical building and then plaques for Lion's Eye. But currently, right now, this is not in the plans. This was just an option that we had talked about based
So
on the
that's
grant.
not part of the proposal before
Correct,
us.
it's not.
Because historically, it deviates from the patterns in the
Correct,
neighborhood.
it does.
Yeah, I would agree in that if it were to be part of the project, even though you're saying it's not, in the future, we would want to probably see it again or somehow condition it to basically take that off the table.
Right.
Okay,
I can tell you currently it's not part of the plans.
Okay.
I got you. Money.
Yeah, money.
Okay. You have a portion of time here in the format here to respond to stuff you've heard, questions you've been asked.
I can't think of anything really. Like I said, we spent a lot of time putting it together to keep it accurate and try to do the best we can to get everything up front because lines that we've been working on this thing for a year and a half.
Understood. Okay, so we'll close the public hearing and discuss the case and move it forward.
I have no further questions.
I think most of our questions were answered in a state that was appropriate, and for any other things such as like tile selection, I know they still want to work on, I want to call it the freeze or the thing above as well.
Yeah.
They're looking for the high resolution photo. That kind of stuff can be, I think, mostly addressed with staff. Maybe I think we would maybe kind of consider trying to think about the entrance, and as was suggested, that the sort of the bird's eye view that we saw felt a lot more historically appropriate for the entrance to the property as well, and that would be my maybe one big condition of seeing we could try to work a way that we can try to give them the security that they both need for the facility, but also make it a historically appropriate entrance as well.
I would agree. It seems like in terms of, I would encourage them to continue working with the parapet. The color palettes and the shutter details could all be signed off by staff, but the entrance is a really crucial part, especially when they're taking such care and detail to recreate the more historic fence along the property. So also the use of decorative tile on the vertical risers of the staircase seems really inconsistent with a factory industrial building of this nature. So while I do think that there's an appropriate use of decorative concrete pavers within the courtyard area they're developing, I would really dissuade them from using them in any place that's visible from the street.
I think a lot of our questions have been answered. Very good discussion for me. I really love what you're doing. I think it'll be very nice and much needed. I think that's all I have.
Yeah, again, thank you to the presenter and the owner applicants. You know, when we drill into the details this deep, it means that we like it and we're just trying to tweak it and make it right.
Make sure it's right.
But I don't want to prejudice emotion. I would say that, you know, for our considerations, the canopy on the backside, however that comes off the building, it needs to be the same on both sides because you're showing one offset maybe 2 feet and the other one was right next to the wall. That's awkward. So whatever the offset is, it should be centered around the building. I think that the pattern of the tile in the break area can be delegated to staff. I wholeheartedly agree that the vertical tile on a stair like that is completely inconsistent, and you would find a steel piece there, vented sometimes. You know, there's plenty of references in the district for how to do that, even on that existing building. I'm sure there's one that's appropriate. The entry with that the bird's eye has with the rounded entry, the smaller gate, and the smaller approach to that space is much more historically appropriate. And I think that, you know, you guys are making the best out of the backside too. You know, if it was a completely new portion, we could argue and fight about how that is, but since it's been approved and it's there, let's work with what you have and make it go forward. So those are my comments. I appreciate it again, and let's have a motion.
I would move to grant as final approval with conditions for the drawings and document as presented at this public hearing in BLC 20-46 for the property located at 1410 North 21st Street, with the following conditions: that the applicant continue to work with staff and present all the final information about the color and finishes, details of the shutter, and the other comments made at the public hearing in regards to the rear canopy and its positioning along the historic facade, and to continue working with staff to further the design development of the courtyard area and the entrance off of, what street is that? 21st, with the preference of rescaling to the more historically accurate curb fencing with a simpler palette of concrete up and no decorative use of tile on the vertical surfaces of the stairs. Is there anything I missed?
We're going to find out. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and second. Does the applicant understand and agree to the conditions that are being attached to that particular motion?
Yes.
Okay, very good.
And if I could just make one more amendment to my motion, I neglected to mention that they continue working with staff on the parapet, the historic parapet,
And
recreation.
add on, please, the notion that that particular brick cut out on that pedestrian side is not part of the project.
Oh, and that the, what street was that again?
21st.
Is it 21st?
It's 21st, correct? Okay.
Yeah, that the deviation to the sidewalk for the, on the 21st Avenue side is not part of this proposal.
Yes.
Okay. We have a motion.
Second.
We have a second. We have conditions that are accepted by the owner applicant. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We're good. Thank you.
Good luck, thank you.
So the last case this morning is BLC 20-47. This is for the address of 1619 East 8th Avenue. The structure dates back to 1926. It is a contributing structure. It is in the YC1 zoning classification. The use is commercial, and the certificate of appropriateness request is for exterior renovations and rooftop access. This is the Sanborn from 29. Property in question is highlighted here in the green box, which faces 8th Avenue. 8th Avenue is to the north. Obviously, you have 7th to the south, and it's in between 16th Street and 17th Street. The uniqueness of this chunk of the Sanborn map is a lot of the perception in the commercial core down 7th and 8th is that they were all brick buildings, and if you look back in the early 1900s, you see the concentration of frame structures that are within that commercial core, and this is 8th Avenue here. So looking today, this is the property that we're discussing this morning. This is 8th Avenue. You see the trolley lines here. This is part of Central Ivor, and over here as well. To narrow in on the front facade of the property in question, has more of a traditional storefront with the display windows, the lower bulkhead. You have a horizontal canopy with some awnings on top. To focus on the main entrance here. And to get a little closer, they have some challenges with the accessibility that will be discussed this morning as well. This shows it from a distance how the grading was depressed. I think in the 70s that this was a dock high entrance that trucks used to back up and unload some of their goods. So through today's request, they're going to modify the sidewalk here to get the transition from the sidewalk straight in to the building so they don't have that accessibility issue. Over here you have a zero lot line, east elevation with no penetrations. This is the west elevation, 0 lot line, no penetrations. You see some vertical accessibility back here. This is where the elevator shaft was at. Just to move back to the front elevation, these are the second story windows. They're metal windows. Just looking at the completion of the top of the building. This is on the front. The condition of the storefront. Currently abutting to the west, you have a parking lot. Abutting to the east, you have a non-contributing building. And directly across the street, you have part of Century Ybor. At this time, I'll call Ms. Hedlund to provide her presentation, and she does need to be sworn in. She has not been sworn in.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you give providing this morning is the truth and nothing but the truth?
All right. My name is Kim Helen. I'm an architect at Wilder Architecture located in Ybor City. I am here today to present, as Ron said, on 1619 East 8th Avenue. I'll start with a broad overview. The building's been vacant for a number of years. It is being renovated to a business occupancy for up to 2 tenants, one on the second floor, one on the first. The site, as you can see in this initial drawing, is a 0 lot line site. So, so the site is completely built out, and there's not much else to talk about. Starting on the ground floor, I'll start with discussing the ADA challenges that that this particular entry has. So our major, let me back up a second. Our major modifications to the exterior of the building include essentially refreshing the front facade, cleaning up the alley side of the facade, but then extending the existing elevator shaft up to 41 feet 4 inches to allow for roof access, and extending this this rear stair up to the roof as well. Both are located set back as far as you can from 8th Avenue. In terms of the accessibility challenges, this site, as Ron had mentioned, has an entire section of granite from pretty much from lot line to lot line that has been recessed for drive-up access to former use on the site. So what is happening here is there's some modifications that we need to make in order to have that sidewalk be as accessible as possible to the front door. Right now there's a significant, almost 6-inch dip, which would have been great for delivery trucks, but not so great for accessibility purposes. So we have started the process of working with right-of-way department to address and regrade that area in the front. The existing granite curbing, which from pretty much from lot line to lot line is recessed, will remain recessed. The majority of the sidewalk along this area slopes up to this center point of the sidewalk, and then from there is kind of all over the place. So that center line will remain the same, and we will essentially be repouring the area closest to the building, along with the area that had the most significant sort of dipping. So you can see that with the hatched area on that first floor plan. Second floor plan, again, business occupancy, as we stated, they're probably easiest if I talk about modifications, starting at the roof plan and then to the elevation. So as discussed, the elevator shaft is extending up to 41 feet, and the stair is extending up to 36 feet. This provides rooftop access. The owner had wanted some sort of outdoor space. They aren't from Florida originally and have grand plans of sitting outside all the time. So we are re-roofing with a TPO system. What you see here, this gridded pattern, is a pedestal system. There is a wood finish material on that pedestal system that gets a level area that can be used. You can see the walkway pads out to this front area. We have included a railing which is set back considerably off the face of the building, in large part to limit what you can see from 8th Avenue. And as you know, there's not a building on either side, so they're set back in fairly, I believe on 4 feet on one side and 5 feet on the other side to really limit the what you can see. We have 2 skylights. Those are provided, and they're provided in a way so that they fit in between the existing wood truss system on the second floor. Jumping to the elevations, I'll start with the 8th Avenue side, which you see on the bottom of the screen here. The first floor, ground floor elevation is being refurbished as is. It's a wood storefront system. It will be completely refurbished, hardware to remain, and no significant modifications there. The canopy as well is being refurbished, repainted, and it's got existing recessed lighting there. So nothing is being significantly altered at that pedestrian level. The second floor windows are being sort of dismantled and reglazed. They will have, they are currently black. They will be repainted to be black, and as I mentioned, they'll be reglazed. The existing awnings, which you can see in the photo here to the left, those are going to be removed. Here you can see the stair that comes up to 36 feet, and again the existing elevator shaft, and then the extension of that. Those extensions are clad in an IFAS system, and both the elevator opening and the door have a metal canopy with 5E crimp roofing material. On the alley side, bring this down a little bit. It's a tight alley. It's an Ivor alley, so it's hard to get a full shot, but you can see the alley has the existing building has a lot of stuff on the back of it. Meters, boxes, all of that, as you can see here, with the exception of the electrical supply and the, interestingly enough, the fire protection system is tied to the building that's on 7th. So that has an interesting piping system which will remain. Everything else is coming off. Currently, these existing windows are infilled with what looks like a wood-framed, plywood-clad substrate that's painted. We are proposing to come back with masonry and a cement plaster finish there with a slight recess, a 1-inch recess back from the face of the existing brick. And again, here you can see the extension of both the elevator shaft and the stair. Let me shift to, to the east and to the west elevations, there you can see the railing system here and the existing 8th Avenue parapet, how it comes up there. It really limits the view from 8th Avenue for the railings. And again, there's the IFAS system for the stair extension. We are, part of the scope of the project is repointing of the brick, and we will do that in a way where the mortar matches both the color and the dimension of what we can establish as hopefully original to the building. Let me jump back up for a second to the renderings. Okay, so we have been able to, I'm not sure if it's as legible as I'd like on here, but you also have this up here. We have proposed, again, as I said, the IFAS, we are working with Stephanie Farrell, who's taking care of historic tax credits and ad valorem application that'll come along later. We are working with her and established that perhaps the most appropriate color would be to work with a site mock-up and try to match or at least pick a color that's complementary for those two extensions that go the elevator extension and the stair extension. So you can see those, and you can also see that when standing just in front of the trolley stop or the streetcar stop, that you can see the railings at set back 5 foot are barely visible. Again, this is from the corner east of this building, and again, you can with the tree there, it's very hard to see the stair and the elevator pop up. We do have one additional. There we go, and there's a rendering. This is actually modeled with the elevator and the stair in place, and you can see just the top of that railing system when you're across the street. In terms of material palette, jump over here for a minute, maybe a little easier. Again, the existing brick we're going to work to repoint and match what we can determine was most likely there originally. The entry doors, again, are being refurbished in place along with their hardware. The skylight system is a slightly pitched skylight system, Velux, that has a black frame, and it works, it has a Florida product approval, and it meets all those great requirements, and most importantly, it comes thin enough so it fits in between the roof trusses. We are proposing a black aluminum railing at that roof level. Again, the 5V crimp at the two small canopies that are at both the door to the stair and the elevator doors. Again, these were IFAS, and we'd like to work with an on-site mock-up to pick a color that's most appropriate there. We are refurbishing the beadboard that's underneath this canopy, so that those existing lights and the beadboard will be refurbished. And then again, we're we actually have a banding. What's on the plans is most accurate, but it's a 1-inch hex tile and green banding that runs along the perimeter. There's not very much of it. It's not as wide an opening as you usually see in Ivor, but we are proposing a 1-inch square series of bands around the 1-inch hex tile in white. I think that concludes the presentation, unless I need to go through the wall section. It's existing. There's not a significant amount to go through there, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Good morning, Commissioner Ron Vila, staff of the Historic Preservation. In reviewing this application, staff's finding that it is consistent with the Ybor City Design Guidelines. The following conditions were discussed with the agent. We just met last week, so she could tighten up her presentation today. The first item that was a concern was the entrance into the building and the modification to the sidewalk and the curbing to get all that code compliant. In altering the sidewalk, we would like to see that the scoring be maintained on the both sides as this new piece kind of is toothed in together. The entrance material is period appropriate as they get to the stoop area. The 1-inch tiles are consistent with the fabric in the early 1900s. Moving to the rooftop, they're just putting a deck up there that the water will permeate through and then drain through. The roof has a slight pitch that it drains through to the back. I just wanted to be put on the record that at this time, no additional equipment is going to be put up there. At times we see the rooftop grow. There's a TV, a cabana or something comes to that effect. So if that's the case, we could address that. We could do something internally, administratively, we could address it. If it needs to come back to the board, then we'll facilitate that for you at a later date. I think the perspectives were very important to show that the railing up top is really non-existent. They did the best job they can by pulling it in, so it's not a negative as you walk down 8th Avenue. The additional items that we had listed, she addressed. And I just wanted to put out the last item of concern is the repointing. Staff takes this very seriously. At the time that they're going to engage with the repointing, we meet the masons on site. We determine the most appropriate color. The widths of the joints are very important to meet Secretary of Interior standards as well. And then the contour. Some are struck with a concave, some are struck with a convex, some are just flat that meet the face of the brick. So at that time, when they're ready to go forward, we'll have a staff member on site. Yes, sir.
One question, because you did mention the creep that can easily happen for rooftop areas that get developed. I'm just curious, where do things like potted plants and umbrella fall into the category? I mean, are those allowed up there once we approve a rooftop deck?
Well, they're not part of the request today, so that's why I wanted to get put on the record.
Okay.
There's a sensitivity and proper location for those as well. What we're hearing more than anything is the amplified music as it gets into the neighborhoods.
Mm-hmm.
So I think they could put some aesthetics up there if they're placed properly and in working with staff, but there'll be a tipping point, and when it comes to that tipping point, then you guys will see it again.
Oh, okay, thanks.
Take a run, and so now we'll open it up to any public comment, if anyone wants to come forward. Seeing no one to come forward, we'll close the public comment section, and now, starting to my right, we'll have the commissioners ask any questions of the applicant.
I'm okay. I don't have, well, I take that back. And I wanted to make sure that I didn't misunderstand something that you said, which I think I did. On the front facade, on the front, you're doing something in wood, and I made a notation. Tell me, can you walk through that one more time? I'm sorry.
Yes, yeah, okay, Ron's picture is better.
Oh, I see, right under the windows.
And larger. So the wainscoting here, I'm pointing to the wrong screen, sorry. This entire window system is a wood window system. So we have wood doors, we have this paneling system just below the windows, we have the transoms, all of that is wood, all of that is going to get sanded, repaired, and hopefully sealed and look fantastic again.
Got it. Okay, I'm sorry, I misunderstood that part when you originally went through it. And that's my only question, that I needed that for clarification.
And while we have this picture up, are there any modifications being made to the actual canopy? Because it does look like it's been modernized and.
Yeah, I think it was a previous approval, and I may even have the date of that. I think.
Yeah, we may have it too.
Yeah, I think it dates back to 2003 is what.
Oh, okay.
It looks like the owner is not interested in modifying it at this time. It's still structurally sound. I do understand, but it's not, at this point, it's the bead board below it is gonna be refreshed and it's gonna remain as is.
In regards to the canopies outside the elevator door and the stair tower, they appear to be pretty flat on the renderings. I'm just wondering, are they sloped all, or they might be?
They are sloped. Let me pull up a building section, which may.
Unless I'm just reading the drawing wrong, but.
No, it's definitely a minimal slope.
Oh, okay. It seems like a more extreme slope would be more in keeping with what we normally see within the district, but.
We would be happy to work with staff to ensure we get the proper slope on there, but I do see your point.
And then I just was wondering, I can appreciate you wanting to experiment on site with how to, in terms of the color for cladding the additions to the towers in the back. I'm just curious, I think it might also be appropriate if they were wrapped in metal. You often see that in some of the historic districts. I didn't know if you were exploring that as an option.
We have looked at metal for this project and a couple of others, and the IFAS actually helps us with our energy calculations and just overall longevity maintenance, what it's going to look like in 10 years from now.
Okay, thank you.
No questions, thank you.
The only question I have left remaining is for the second-story awnings, those that are being removed. Were those added at a later date on the building?
They were added at a later date, and I'm looking through that same.
Yeah, I guess there's a list.
On that list too, is that?
Yeah, it may be with the 2003. I'm not sure. It wasn't that long ago because if I recall, there was during our DRC meeting, there was a staff member that did remember the canopies going on at one point. So.
Okay, got it, thank you. And then with that, I don't think you answered the questions as we kind of went along, but any rebuttals before we close off your presentation? All right, well, with that, we'll close the public hearing. And then, I guess starting with my left over here, we can start the discussion of the case. Oh. This is the thing. I think they're blazing things.
No, I have no concerns.
No comments?
No comments.
All right, I don't have many comments either, just I'm glad to hear that staff will be on site to do the brick repointing and that kind of thing as well. And so I think that with that, as they work through those things with staff, I think things will be in good hands. So with that, I can make a motion.
Move to grant a certificate of appropriateness for the drawings and documents presented at this public hearing and BLC 20-47 for the property located at 1619 East 8th Avenue, based upon the finding of fact the proposed project is consistent with the Ybor City Design Guidelines of the City of Tampa for the following reasons: that it's the additions and improvements meet all the criteria with the following conditions: that the applicant continue working with the appropriate city departments for code compliance at the modifications at the sidewalk, that staff approve the final scoring for the concrete sidewalk, and that staff have approval of any additional development of the rooftop area. Oh, and that they work with staff to revisit the sloping and design of the canopies at the rooftop level.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
And does the applicant understand the conditions that were presented from the motion? All right, fantastic. We have a motion. We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Fantastic. Congratulations.
Right.
With that, I'll close the public hearing. I feel weird.